If you're planning an event, one useful addition to your invitation is a map to your destination. Of course, you can always provide an address alone and hope that the map application on your guest's phone or GPS delivers them to your door, but a little map can give a partygoer a quick snapshot as to where they're headed. And trust me, your guests are going to appreciate the effort that you take to simplify their journey. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to make a personalized map for your invitation. When creating maps, you need a reference. So what I suggest doing is going to a popular map application, such as Google Maps, Yahoo Maps, etc., and plug in the address to the venue that you're going to be holding your event at. Once you've got it there, go ahead and create a snapshot of your screen. Now, depending on your operating system, this may differ, but on a Mac, it is Command-Shift-4, and that will bring up your little marquee, and then you can drag a selection out above the area that you want to make a screen grab of. Alternatively, on Windows, I know that you can hold down the Windows key and print screen to take a grab of the entire screen. Again, depending on your operating system and even your keyboard, it may differ for your particular setup. With your screen grab taken, you need to open it up into a graphic application. Now, I'm going to be using Photoshop here today, but basically you can use any application that supports layers. Once you've located your screen grab, go ahead and open it up, and then it should appear something kind of like that. And this is going to serve as our reference. Now, what I want to do for our project is I want to create a general map that leads people to the venue that I'm going to be holding my event at. In this case, it happens to be Hotel Baker right here. So I'm going to start off by selecting the elliptical marquee tool, and then I'm going to drag a selection out. And I'm going to hold the Shift key down here so I can make a perfect circle. And I'm going to hold it down right around here or so. I probably should have made my screen grab a little bit higher, but this should work right about, I'd say right about there. Okay, so I've got my selection. I'm going to hit Command or Control J on the keyboard, and what that's going to do is it's going to create a separate layer with just that selection that I had created. All right, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to continue by creating a new layer beneath the layer that we just created here. I'm going to hold down the Command or Control key and click on the new layer icon within the Layers panel, and then I'm going to fill that layer with white. I'm going under Edit, Fill, and then I'm selecting Contents, White. And the reason why I'm doing this is simply so that I can isolate the area so that we can get a quick view of the area that we're going to be creating the map around. Now I'm going to do a couple of organizational things here. I'm going to create a background from our background layer simply because, again, I like to keep it organized. And I also want to show a before and after once we're done. And I'm going to rename this white to just simply white background. There we go. And we're going to call this layer right here our base. Okay, so now basically what we need to do is recreate the major elements of our map. So I'm going to create a new layer by clicking on the new layer icon within the Layers panel. And I'm going to start off by creating a base above our base map, and that is the base color, I should say. So I'm going to hold down the eyedropper tool for a moment, and I'm going to select the color of the background right down here next to the river, this big open area. That's going to serve as our base. And I'm going to hold down the Command or Control key and tap on the base layer, our base map layer, and we'll just go ahead and fill that. I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut to do this. I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key and then hit the Delete or Backspace key. So now again, that is our base layer. All right, now I'll leave that off temporarily. We're just going to rename that and then we'll come back to it. And we called the other one base. I'm going to call this one base map. Okay, just to keep it organized. And now we're going to go ahead and select our paintbrush tool at this point and create another new layer. Again, clicking on the new layer icon within the Layers panel. And I'm going to hold on the eyedropper tool, and we're just going to go off of the colors within this map for starters. Again, I encourage you to use your own creativity. It doesn't have to be this boring map like what we grabbed right off of Google Maps, but we're just going to use this as a base and hopefully give you some ideas as to what you might do with yours. Now, there's two things that we can do here. Now, one, I like to keep a selection so that I'm just painting inside of this. Inside of the circular map. And by that I mean if I wanted to draw outside of the map area, nothing's going to happen. And I can also start my drawing outside there, nothing's going to happen. But I'm going to simply draw a straight line kind of following this street right here. I could draw it freehand, and that's not too bad right there. But another little tip is constraining your brushstroke. So if I were to tap, let's say kind of in line right here, if I were to tap right out there and then hold my Shift key down, and then tap on the other side of that street, you can see how it just kind of snapped a line right there. Let's toggle the visibility of that base map off for a second. You can see how much straighter that one is. So if you really want to keep your line straight, you can do so by holding the Shift key down as you've started your drawing. All right, I'm going to turn off that base map right there so we can see our streets. I'm going to go ahead and create another new layer. Actually, let's do this so we keep these organized. I'm going to call this main road. And I'm going to create a layer. I'm going to keep these right beneath it. I'm going to keep going down. Actually, we're starting at the top, if you will, with the main roads. I'm going to hold my Command or Control key down, again, clicking on the new layer, and that's going to create a layer beneath the layer that I had selected. And I'm going to call this secondary. And now I'm going to select the color for our secondary roads, and that's going to be white. Again, holding down the eyedropper temporarily so that I can select a color right there, and then releasing. And I'll get a slightly smaller brush using the touch ring on my keyboard. If I tap the touch ring toggle button in the center of my touch ring, you can see that it toggles there. And I'm just going to draw a white street right down there. And let's see here. I'm just going to freehand these. We'll see how good my freehand is today. And then we'll draw this one right down here. There we go. And again, if you draw it out of line or if it's not to your liking, of course, you can always undo and then draw it once more. There, that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and hold down my Command or Control key one more time, and I'm going to click on the new layer icon to create another new layer. And we're just going to call this side street as opposed to secondary. And I'm just going to draw this one other road right down here, this Illinois street. I'm going to skip over this 3rd Street and this Walnut. I don't think it's important for our map, so I'm going to skip that. But I'm going to hold on my eyedropper, and I'm going to select the color of that side street right there, and we're just going to draw a little map or a little street right across there. Okay, and I'll turn off that base map layer for a second. We can see our roads. That's good. Probably the most distinctive element that we need to include on here is our river. So I'm going to create one more layer, clicking on the new layer icon, and that actually created it right above it. I'm just going to drag it right down here, and we're going to name this one River. And I'm going to hold down the I key on the keyboard temporarily. I'm going to select that blue color. And now I'll get a slightly larger brush, and we'll go ahead and paint our river in here. And there we go. Now, it doesn't have to be exact. Again, I don't think anybody's going to call you on this, but I'm just kind of creating kind of a rough drawing of the river. There we go. And I'll go ahead and paint this in. I'm going to toggle that map off for a moment so I can see where I'm painting. There we go. And we've got our river. There we go. That looks pretty good. And we'll turn that back on. So there's the basis of our map. And I'll toggle that base map layer on and off, and I'll make sure that the base layer is on so that we can see our original map. There's our map. You can see it's obviously a lot less busy. At this point, I like to add a little bit of depth to the image. I'm going to do so by shading a little bit some of the main elements within the image. I'm going to grab a slightly darker color of the river, and I'm going to hold down the Command or Control key, and I'm going to tap on the river layer so that I can make it a selection. I'm going to select my paintbrush tool. If I go to my brushes panel, I want to get a soft round brush. This is going to give me kind of a feathered edge here. And I'm going to get a much larger brush, and I'll use the bracket key on my keyboard or the touch ring on my tablet to adjust the brush size. And I'm just going to kind of give it a little hint on each side of the riverbank there. There we go. That looks pretty good. I'm going to hit Command D to deselect. And then for the main roads, what I'm going to do is come over to my main road layer. There we go right there. And I'm going to hold down again the Command or Control key and tap on that layer. That's going to make a selection. This time I'm going to go under Edit. I'm going to go to Stroke. And we're going to stroke this a slightly darker color than what we have there. There we go. It's something a little bit more orange. And I'll go ahead and click OK. We'll leave it at 1 pixel, and I'll go ahead and tap OK. Again, Command D or Control D to deselect. You can see we've got a little bit more definition there. And we'll go ahead and leave the main or the secondary street and the side street alone. So now I like what that looks like. And again, I encourage you to experiment here to add a little bit more detail or some other element to your map that resembles the theme of your invitation. At this point, I'm going to crop it just a little bit. Get rid of some of this white space. There we go. And now we'll zoom in. We need to add a few more things to our map to complete it. Obviously, we need to create the landmarks, the hotel that is, and those could be icons. And then we also have to name our streets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the street names here. And then in a little picture-in-picture window right down here at the bottom, I'm going to show you that I created the icons in a separate video. We're just going to embed that there. So we're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Now, as I toggle that base map layer off for a second, let's take a look at our streets. And I should probably turn off some of these other layers. And in the meantime, why don't we go ahead and create something that's going to help us out here. I'm going to select all of my layers, those elements within the image. And I'm going to create a new group from layers, and we're just going to call these elements, for lack of a better word. That way I can toggle them on and off for a second pretty quickly so that we can see the names of our streets. So we've got Geneva Road, we've got First Street, we've got South Riverside Avenue, and we've got Illinois. And this main one right here is actually called Main Street. It also is Route 64. So we'll add a few of those. So we can toggle that on and off. And we'll go ahead and create our base layer. I'm just going to select my type tool here, and I'll type up here so you can continue watching down here at the bottom the creation of the icons. And we're just going to select Main Street, and I'm going to make a dark brown color for this particular. There we go. That looks pretty good right there. And you know what? Actually, that's kind of green. Let's go with a little more of a brown. There we go. And I'm going to select my move tool there. I'm going to hold down my Option or Alt key, and I'm going to tap and drag this down. And I'm going to drag it down a couple of times, actually, because I'm just going to go through here and very quickly name my streets. So we had South Riverside Drive, and then we had Geneva Road. And then we also had Illinois Street. All right, and we can toggle those on and off for a moment. Let's just toggle that off, and let's take a look, make sure we got the right ones. South First Street we need. There we go. Now these are kind of large font size. That's okay, because again, this is a more detailed map that shows our guests where they're going to be going, so I think they would appreciate being able to see those streets pretty easily. Now we just have to simply select them and move them around. So I'm going to select my first street. I'm going to hit Command or Control T to free transform, and we'll just kind of move these around here. Put those into position. Here's a little tip for you. If you hold down the Command or Control key and tap on the layer or on the words themselves for each individual layer, you'll notice in my layers panel that they select. So let's go ahead and select those and kind of move these around. Again, Command or Control T will kind of move these in place. I'm calling this Main Street, even though our map happens to say 64. Main Street is actually the name of the street as it goes through that center of town, and people will identify with that. So I'm going to leave it there. South Riverside Drive. Let's just toggle that on and off for a moment. Make sure we know exactly where South Riverside is. That's this one right over here. Again, Command or Control T will move these into place. And if they are too big, we can, of course, make them a little bit smaller. But we'll go ahead and leave that there. And from here, we're going to go ahead and add the landmarks or the icons that we created in a previous document. So I'm just going to tab over here, and I'm going to select them, select everything, copy, and we'll tab back over here. We're going to paste these into place. And that's kind of large right there. We'll go ahead and leave it where it's at for now. And then we'll go back over here, and then we'll select our bed or hotel icon. Again, copying it and then pasting it over here. I'm going to hit Command or Control T. And we're just going to make it a little bit smaller and then move that right over, I think it was right about here. And let's grab our pin. Again, that's a little bit large, so we'll go ahead and make that a little bit smaller. We can put it right here. You know, I kind of like it on an angle, but this will work, you know, for the purposes of our demonstration here. And we'll kind of leave that right there. I'm going to do one last thing. I'm going to hit the T key on my keyboard, and we're going to go ahead and name our hotel. And we'll just move that into place. We just leave that right about there. So as you can see, making a map isn't exactly difficult, but depending on the level of detail, it can take a little bit of time. Consider your theme and be creative. Whether your event is a party, a school function, or a wedding, a map is a great way to ensure that your event goes off without a hitch.